Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is that you're tuned in. My name is Art Jones. I'm the founder of The Art of Standing Out. And on this channel, we talk to individuals that stand out from the crowd because they stand up for what they believe, and they're doing amazing work in their business and their communities. Today, we have Aaron Gouveia. He's in New England, and I have to admit, I'm in Arizona, but I'm from the tri-state area, so I'm a Yankee fan. He's from New England. I know he's a Pats fan and every other sports team in New England, but I'm over that because he's just an amazing guy. And we'll talk about why he's amazing here in a little bit, but I have to tell you the reason that I gravitated to Aaron was on LinkedIn. He put a post out, I think it was last week. His son, like everyone else, is on lockdown, but celebrating a birthday. So Aaron, the journalist and the writer that he is, posted something online saying, my son's on lockdown, but we're going to make the best of it. And then a fleet of police cars from the Mass Highway Patrol or PD showed up at his front door, sirens blasting, lights flashing, to celebrate Aaron's son. I said, wow, that's amazing. One, good on the PD. But I said, this guy must have a way with words to get that to happen. So I want to talk to him. So here we are. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. And thanks for admitting off the bat you're a Yankees fan. I hear admitting it's the first step toward recovery. So you're on your way.
we could do an hour on that, on the rivalry. But look, in the interest of time, I could really talk to you for quite a long time because just before we went on air, we talked quite a bit about journalism and writing and the thought process that goes in the writing and the effort that one has to put into writing succinctly, so you don't use too many words, but you use just enough words to get engagement and can nurture a conversation. Before we get to talk about that, the technical aspects of writing, could you go back a little bit in time and tell us, how did you even get into journalism? Most people would think they hear the demise of journalism in its traditional sense, the newspaper. Now everything's online. What in your youth or your experience drove you to want to write for us to learn more about what's going on in the world?
Yeah, so my foray into journalism pretty much begins and ends with my dad. He never got to go to college, but right out of high school, he worked as a newspaper reporter for a while, and he was also he went on to become a public official. So all my life, I grew up going to municipal meetings and things like that, and he was just he pursues the truth with dogged determination, and I always loved that, and I always tried to emulate that. When I got to college and started taking some journalism classes, I realized how important it is, the role of a journalist, to find truth and hold people accountable. So I really just dove in head first. And that was the genesis of it. And also they let me write a column, and who doesn't love writing an opinion column? So that was also part of it. But for the hard news, I started off at local weeklies. I interned at, small dailies, and then eventually moved up to a mid-sized daily in the Cape Cod Times. And, for almost 10 years at various papers, I just, it's great training to, number one, meet a deadline. Number two, you have a certain amount of space you need to fill. So if you have 15 inches, you need to fit everything in those 15 inches. And it teaches you very quickly how to tell the best story possible in the space that you have. And that's an invaluable skill, especially as, people's attention spans are shorter than ever. So you have a very, very small window to grab their attention and be able to tell the rest of the story. And all of that is wonderful training for journalists.
Well, I'd say, there's somebody that wrote a few years ago that, humans today have the attention span of a goldfish,
Yep.
Which is somewhere between 5 and 9 seconds, which is not very long before we are clicking and off to the next screen. Meeting a deadline as being one of the incentives to get your ideas together, visualize what you're going to say, think about how you're going to say it so it will fit into that 15-inch space or whatever you're allocated. Is that something that it takes years and years and years to experience as you described through going through the process? Or is it something as me as a content creator or somebody watching online this video that says, I've got to create content. How do I do that? Is there something that you can impart to us that is a trick of the trade that helps you meet that deadline and fit that space?
Yeah, honestly, when I get stuck, and I do think it's somewhat a learned skill, but also it's, I don't think it takes years. I think if you really apply yourself, you just have to train yourself to know, to always be looking, first of all, look for content, but second of all, look for what the most interesting part of it is. And the way that I do that, I think about explaining things to my wife, because my wife is not in journalism and I can be too close to it sometimes. And, I can get caught up in my own head as a writer and content creator. So when I think about what's the most important thing I need to get out there to grab people, I run it by my wife. And if her eyes glass over and she's bored, then I know that I haven't got it yet. So if you have a friend or someone trusted who you can just, you want to explain it to them, give them the elevator pitch. And if they don't care, then you probably don't have something very good. Or you need to rephrase it or look at another aspect of it, pick out the best part of it to make it good. And, you can't fall in love with your own stuff. And that's why a great editor is always so important. And I've been lucky to have some very good editors.
That's like, you can't proofread your own work, and you shouldn't fall in love with your own stuff. You need to get a second opinion. And I think that goes into if you're trying to engage people and you write from your head to the page and you really don't bounce it off of a person, then you might have just fallen in love with your idea. If that person gives you favorable feedback, then maybe it's you hit the go button and you publish. But it takes a team, I guess. It sounds like it takes, you use a village, in this case your wife, as the sounding board to say, is this too complex an idea, or do you get what I'm trying to convey? Those are wise words. And I think my takeaway is that, I think I'm not unique in that sometimes I just get a block and I can't get anything out.
Yep.
But I think you mentioned, look for content, find an idea that's compelling, find an idea that just doesn't move you, but maybe it's in the zeitgeist and people in the world are talking about it. And then think about your perspective on that thing, and then bounce it off of somebody. Say, this is what's going on. You know it, I know it. Here's what I think in summary. And they go, wow, that's interesting. Yeah. If they do that, then maybe you have 600 words that you can put into a blog post.
Yeah, and honestly, after journalism, I moved to a PR agency. So I was on the agency side, and I was trying to get clients press and trying to make them more interesting for people. And it's really important to remember, you don't have to just focus on the work that they're doing. It can be anything. As an example, we had somebody in the commercial real estate industry, which can, the content there can be a little dry if you get stuck in a rut, but we were struggling. How do we get them noticed? There's a billion, commercial real estate firms in the area, and they're all vying for press. And what ended up working for us was that we found out, we asked them some personal questions. We found out that he was a former hockey player, professional hockey player. And he, or we find out people are running marathons or going to Habitat for Humanity. And, all of a sudden we can kind of sneak in the back door a little bit. We tell the press, hey, look, this thing's happening. And sure, the story might be about them, but we're also sneaking in some facts about the firm as well. So Everything is a story. Everything is a story, and it can be, put back. It can all come back to whatever you want it to. Like the police thing. That's my son's 12th birthday, and the police came and they sang him happy birthday over the loudspeaker. Technically, that doesn't really have anything to do with my career or anything else, but it made for a great story. And so I put it on LinkedIn and I put it on Facebook. On LinkedIn, it has 130,000 views. Facebook's closing in on 1 million views at this point, which is insane. And just the conversations that I've had with people have been amazing. And, that's what opens doors, and that's what makes connections, are these conversations, and good content sparks conversations. So that's why you just always look for it and always try and cultivate it.
And I think, and certainly your son's birthday and the police singing over the loudspeaker is the reason why we're having this conversation, because
exactly.
it made you and your son, and that story was interesting. And
Yeah.
we wanted to find out, how does that happen? And I think that's the thing. You could have given us the data, 6 police cars, lights flashing, singing happy birthday. We would have let that data, we would have intellectually processed that. But I think the snippet that you put out there was the emotion of, we were so excited, it was amazing. And that hits us in the heart and the gut. And I think when we, as content creators, if we just want to give you just the facts, nothing but the facts, humans process that, but it doesn't get us in the heart and the gut where really decisions are made, right? We take our gut instinct and that heartfelt feeling about buying that car, and then we process the numbers and say, okay, I can make this happen. If your content uses the same formula, let's go for that thing that moves them in their gut and their heart. That's the experience. It hits the emotional quotient. It's the hockey player that owns the commercial real estate property that he's more relatable, and it's not just the numbers. He sells great real estate at great prices. Be relatable, go for emotion without going over the top.
Yeah.
And look for content. Always have your eyes open for what are people in the industry that you serve talking about today, and then write content before the subject changes tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Because right now, I mean, I know just by digging through content every day that people are craving good news. They want good news in the midst of all this pandemic. And that story with my son, it was just good news. And, you know, it was great. The police could have done this anytime and it would have been great. But right now, with quarantines going on and with people sick and people dying and people out of work, people want something that they can say, oh, God, for 1 minute, I watched this video and it was so nice to see. And so you have to tap into current events and the current zeitgeist and make sure that you're tapping into tap into a vein, tap into some emotion, tap into the news, just keep it current and keep it relevant.
Well, you've got a track record as a professional and in your private life for creating content that gets a lot of likes and looks and shares. And I think you're now emerging as an author, not just a content creator. Tell us a little bit about the book that you're about to launch and how that bit of content, you breathed life into it, and what was the inspiration for it?
Yeah, so my first book is coming out. It's called Raising Boys to Be Good Men by via Skyhorse Publishing, and it's coming out June 16th. And the genesis of it was actually back in October of 2018. My then 5-year-old son, I have 3 boys. My 5-year-old son had just started kindergarten, and he was wearing nail polish because, my mom was a manicurist, and I have 3 boys, but that's not going to stop her from, doing their nails from time to time. And he loves it. It's a great thing that they do together, and I love it. I think it's wonderful. But he went into kindergarten, and some of the kids didn't love it, and they told him that that's not right. They told him to take it off. They told him boys don't wear nail polish, and they told him it was wrong. And he was devastated at the end of the day, and he collapsed into our arms. And I was angry, and I wrote a Twitter thread supporting him and calling out, toxic masculinity and these gender norms that I think are really harmful. And it went crazy on Twitter. It just went absolutely crazy to the tune of 80,000+ likes. There were some celebrities that, Rob Gronkowski sent a message to Sam telling him to, keep doing what he wants to do. And for New England Patriot super fans like us, that was just about the pinnacle of everything. And so from
you said your dad had Patriots tickets for the last 40 years, so you are a super fan.
Yeah, this is my dad. It's going to be his 49th year as a season ticket holder coming up this season. So that was huge for us. But I mean, that's what led to my book deal. Not all my years of journalism, not all my writing, not my awards. It was a Twitter thread about my son's nail polish, because right now, when you're talking, gender norms and toxic masculinity, that's very, very relevant right now. And it's at the top of everyone's mind. And people noticed that. And a few publishers reached out, and I went with Skyhorse, and I'm nervous as heck, but it's my first time. I feel like I'm in over my head here, but it's coming out June 16th in the middle of a pandemic, and we'll see how it goes. But I do think it's relevant, and I have high hopes for it. I think it's a good conversation to have. But again, it all came about because I was, you know, I saw potential content when after I cheered my son up and took care of him, I said, you know what, I want to say something about this. And so I did. And that's where it led.
Is it conceivable that the authoring the book on that the zeitgeist subject, that you have catapulted yourself into a kind of a thought leader role on the subject? I mean, because the book will be there. People will want you to come and talk about what you wrote about. You've taken a strong position. Have you thought about that part of the experience?
I have a very hard time thinking of myself as a thought leader because I'm very self-deprecating. And, I've started reading all these books. My favorite right now is Peggy Orenstein's book. It's called Boys and Sex. And she interviewed 200 16 to 22-year-old boys and men across the country about all kinds of things. And it's really groundbreaking. And I feel like, I quote her extensively in the book, a lot of thought leaders in there. I mean, to be among them would be, one of the biggest compliments ever. But I mean, I certainly hope to get to that point. Again, this is my first book. So, I'm hoping for more after this, but I think the best way to do that is to surround myself with smarter people and better writers than myself so that I can always keep learning.
The reason I ask the question is that, wherever people are watching this online right now, there are business people and people that want to elevate themselves through their ability to produce great content. And listening to you, I think you've already given us great tips. Look for content, think about the zeitgeist, go for emotion without going over the top, are all good pointers. The book is an opportunity. And a couple of years ago, I have a couple of friends that are authors that were teaching other people how to be authors, and their mantra was, a book is your best business card.
Yeah.
And for the business people listening, if you want to rise above the noise of all the people doing what you do, and you believe that you have ideas about the space that you work in, that you share on a given day to everybody that you come in contact with, if you put that in a book, then when somebody says, I know somebody that should really talk to you, you can say, well, look, I got a book in my trunk. Why don't you just give this to them? And the book is your best business card, because if that executive, that CEO then reads that book, or if somebody on his staff does, or her staff does, you have really expressed what you think and feel and why you validate those points. Why not write a book?
Absolutely. And if you have the means to be able to, and you can sell, there's all kinds of ways. You can go the traditional route, you can self-publish. If you start there, more power to you. But, for me and for, I imagine a lot of other people, that thought leadership starts with, creating your own website, blog posts, little nuggets on LinkedIn and Twitter. These things all build up, and it builds up your platform a little bit at a time to the point where you get noticed. For me, it was, starting a website for dads in 2008, and then writing little bits, started to get noticed, did some brand work, was able to write in, Time and Huffington Post and things like that. And it's just a little bit at a time, it all adds up to the point where you start getting some attention, and then you can have a book. And that's my dream. My dream is to write a book. So I'm very excited, and I would urge anyone to just start. If you have something to say and a unique way to say it, start putting it down somewhere and start getting it out there. It's very important.
And I think that to your point, the book is the best business card, but so is a blog, a video blog, all the posts and aggregate that you put on LinkedIn. That's representative of what you think and feel and what you believe, and it's your brand story for all intents and purposes. So if you keep it to yourself, we'll never know who you are.
Yeah.
Although your fingerprint makes you unique, if we don't know what your story is and what you believe and what you stand for, what North Star guides you, we don't know how to relate to you. Putting it out there, it takes got to be bold.
Sure.
But there's a guy that I love to quote, and I'm not sure I'll get the quote right, Johann von Goethe, from the 1600s, I think. He said, when you commit to do something, anything, when you commit to do it, providence moves too, and untold things happen to support you in that effort. He says it much more eloquently in the early English, but that's the intention. Commit, and then providence moves too. And that's a powerful idea. And, you know, it's funny, when I saw your post about celebrating your son's birthday with the police singing happy birthday from the street to your front door, you were unemployed.
Yep.
Here we are a week later, I think it's about maybe 2 weeks later, you've got a dream job now.
Yeah.
To talk a little bit about that as well, because I think that, talk about brand story, because I think this, the job that you found is reflective of the brand called you. It's an ideal position that it's a company that's not foreign to you, but it is a dream job. That's great.
Yeah, and honestly, that was going to be my last little bit of advice was, you know, to do all this, but, you know, it's fine and you can do all this, but I honestly believe you have to be heartfelt and genuine, because people will sniff out BS in a heartbeat and you will not have any credibility. So you really have to, you can't fake this stuff. It has to be who you are and what you're about. And, you know, I always told people, you know, I said, you know, just look for happiness at your job. It's about more than money. And, you know, I was vice president of a PR agency, and, you know, I'm grateful for the 5 years that I spent there and the things that I learned. But, you know, in the end, it wasn't fulfilling me anymore. It got very sales focused for me, and that's, you know, sales is great, but it's just not really for me. And so I took a look and said, geez, you know, I'm not even following my own advice. And so in early March, I gave my notice there, and it's a tough thing to do when you've got 3 kids and a mortgage and everything else and no backup plan. I mean, I jumped without a parachute, but I did it because I knew it was the right thing to do. And I had confidence. I admittedly didn't know the pandemic would come on this strong and shut everything down. But, you know, it worked out. And this the whole LinkedIn post blowing up, that certainly helped. And now I've got a job. I start later this month. It's a PR director for a nonprofit that I've used and loved for many years that deals with land conservation and stewardship. And, you know, I couldn't be happier. It's going to be a very mission-driven job and very fulfilling for me. And so social media and that story absolutely helped. You know, I was already on their radar, but that really bumped it up. And, you know, it's just proof that good storytelling leads to great things. And I believe that with all my heart.
I think I can quote Plato from 2,500 years ago. He said, those who tell the stories rule society.
Yep.
So, you know, Plato knew it then. It's still true today. And if you're not creating content telling us who you are, the brand called you, you're giving other people the opportunity to tell your story for you. Then it becomes their story about who you are as a brand. So you've got to take the mantle of responsibility, commit to getting it out there. And then just remember, providence will move too. The way providence moved for Aaron, and he's now in his dream job because he was already on the radar, but the bubbling up of that post with 80,000 likes and Gronk coming in, no doubt, they said, hey, Aaron's no longer working at that place. We better get him before somebody else does. Content is king or queen, and we all should be producing content because it gives us a chance to take control of our story and the story we want to tell in the world that we live in. So, Aaron, thanks for coming on the show today. I so appreciate you for being kind of amazing in your pursuit of journalism, and the trajectory of your journey has been, sounds like interesting at least, and fascinating at best. And no doubt it will continue to rise. So good luck in your future endeavors. Once again, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Good luck with your content creation, everybody. Good luck to you, Aaron. And until next time,